Most people think mustard is one of the safest things in their fridge. It's just crushed seeds, vinegar, maybe a pinch of salt. Sharp, simple, traditional. Nothing to overthink. That assumption is exactly why this matters. Because what you're buying today in UK supermarkets isn't the mustard people think it is. It looks the same. It's sold the same way. It sits in the same place on the shelf. But the recipes, the processing, and the intent behind many of these products have quietly changed. And not in a way most people would notice. We're not talking about something obvious like junk food. We're talking about something people use without thinking. A teaspoon here, a squeeze there. It goes into sandwiches, dressings, marinades. It's part of your diet in small amounts but consistently. And that's exactly where small changes matter the most. Because modern mustard isn't always just mustard anymore. It's often been adjusted, sweetened, stabilized, designed to last longer, look better, and appeal to more people. And every one of those changes moves it further away from what it originally was. So we went through the major mustard products sold across UK supermarkets right now. Not just the budget options, but the popular ones. The trusted ones. The ones people pick up automatically without checking. And we're going through the 6 you should avoid. Then, at the end, the one that's still worth buying. Because there is still one that gets it right. But it's not the one most people reach for. Now before we get into the list, there's something you need to understand. Traditional mustard is incredibly simple. Mustard seeds, vinegar, water, salt. That's it. Everything else is optional. Everything else is a choice. And once you start adding more, you're not just enhancing it, you're changing it. And that's what's happened across most of the shelf. Let's start with number 6. Heinz Mild Yellow Mustard. This is one of the most recognizable bottles in the UK. Bright yellow, smooth, easy to use. And that's exactly the problem. Because this isn't traditional mustard. It's been designed to be mild, to be sweet, to be approachable for everyone. And the way you get that result isn't by accident. You reduce the intensity of the mustard seed, you balance it with added sugar, you adjust the acidity so it's less sharp. You create something that doesn't challenge the palate. What you end up with is something that feels familiar, but doesn't behave like real mustard. It's softer, flatter, less direct. And once you get used to that, real mustard starts to feel too strong, even though that's what it's supposed to be. Number 5. Tesco American Style Mustard. This is where things start getting diluted in a different way. This product is built to hit a price point. And to do that, the formula gets stretched. More liquid, more vinegar, more water, less actual mustard content. And then stabilizers are used to hold it all together so it still looks right on the shelf. The result is something that pours well, spreads easily, and looks consistent. But when you taste it, it lacks depth, it lacks structure, it disappears too quickly. It's not offensive, it's just not doing much. And that's the issue. You're buying something that looks like mustard, but doesn't deliver what mustard is meant to deliver. Number 4. French's Classic Yellow Mustard. This one is everywhere. And a lot of people assume this is what mustard is supposed to taste like. It isn't. This is a completely different style. Bright color. Smooth texture. Balanced towards sweetness rather than sharpness. The color alone tells you something has changed. Traditional mustard doesn't look like that. It doesn't need to. That bright yellow is there for visual appeal. It signals flavor before you even taste it. It makes the product stand out. And once again, the flavor follows the same pattern. Less intensity, more balance, more control. It's designed to be liked by everyone, but mustard was never meant to be neutral. It was meant to have an edge. Number 3. Waitrose Essential French Mustard. Now we move into the category that looks better on the surface. This one feels more premium, cleaner packaging, French-style positioning, slightly higher price point. And because of that, people assume it's closer to traditional mustard. But this is where things get more subtle. The ingredients might look simpler, the branding might feel more authentic, but the overall product is still designed for scale. That means consistency over variation, shelf life over freshness, a flavor profile that stays the same every time. And in doing that, something gets lost. The depth, the slight unpredictability, the intensity that comes from less controlled production. It's not bad. That's what makes it tricky. It's just not as real as it appears. Number 2. Male Whole Grain Mustard. This is the one that catches people off guard. Because visually, it looks right. Whole mustard seeds, textured, rustic. Everything about it suggests authenticity. And to be fair, it is closer to traditional mustard than most of what we've covered so far. But it's still been adapted. When a product is produced at this scale, it has to be. The texture has to remain consistent. The flavor has to be predictable. The shelf life has to be extended. And those requirements change the process. What you get is a version of traditional mustard that's been stabilized for modern retail, better than most, but still not untouched. And if you've ever had truly fresh whole grain mustard, you'll notice the difference immediately. Number 1. Coleman's English mustard. This is the one that surprises people the most. Because this is the brand. The one that's been in British kitchens for generations. The one people trust without thinking. And that's exactly why it's here. Because when something becomes that familiar, people stop questioning it. They stop comparing it. They stop asking whether it's still what it used to be. And over time, products change. Production methods shift. Ingredients are adjusted. Processes are scaled. Not dramatically. Not in a way that triggers alarm, but gradually. And the only way you notice is if you compare it to something that hasn't changed. Most people don't do that. They compare it to everything else on the shelf, and in that context it still feels like the standard. But that doesn't mean it still is. Now, here's the part most people don't expect. There is one mustard that still does it properly. Tracklement's Strong English Mustard. This is what mustard looks like when it hasn't been over-engineered. Simple ingredients, clear flavor, no attempt to soften it or make it more widely appealing. It's sharp. It's direct. It does exactly what mustard is supposed to do. And because of that, it stands out immediately. Not because it's trying to be different, but because everything else has moved away from this baseline. And here's the thing. When you go back to something like this, you notice more than just the taste. You notice how little you need to use. You notice how it behaves differently in food. You notice how it doesn't rely on sweetness or additives to carry the flavor. It's doing the job on its own. And that's what real mustard is supposed to be. But this isn't just about mustard. It's about how familiar foods change over time, how something simple becomes something adjusted, then refined, then standardized, then expected, until eventually the original version feels unusual. That's the cycle. And it happens slowly enough that most people never notice. Mustard is just an easy example because it started so simple. But once you see it here, you start noticing it everywhere. Sauces, bread, ready meals, even basic ingredients. Things that used to be straightforward are now designed. Not necessarily worse, but different. And those differences add up. Because when you're eating something regularly, even small changes matter over time.